Welcome to the Couchboard podcast, where we naively talk about anything and everything for your listening pleasure. I am Jordan, and as always, I have with me Colby and Max. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, tonight, the episode is music and stuff. But before we get into the wonderful topic of music, what's been going on, guys? Anything exciting happening in your lives right now?
Well, I was on
How's
TV.
Quarantine going?
I was on TV for a minute because my sister-in-law's in The Bachelor. Listen to Your Heart. So that's going on.
A minute would be about 60 times longer than it actually was, Colby.
Correct. But my wife and kids are on for like a solid maybe 10 seconds total.
That's true.
Between them.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's big time.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe your sister-in-law can tweet about our podcast with all these new followers.
Yeah, she better.
And if she doesn't, I'm not going to watch her show anymore.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That holds more weight.
Totally.
We can get some hot scoops for Bachelor Nation.
Yes, because I've seen one episode of it.
Well, yes, but has she told you anything about...
I do know what's going to happen in this show, but I don't want to pay $10,000 for disclosing anything. So,
Have they filmed the whole season? Is it done?
yep, it's done. It's all filmed.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's always done.
Well, you never really know, because there's like the fine, like women tell all or men tell all, and I don't know when that takes place.
I think that would be long after. They were talking about getting them all back together, but then the COVID stuff, and so they can't actually all get in the same place again.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
I bet they filmed this one in like a month.
Oh, it was. I think Brie was
Cranked
gone
it out.
for 6 weeks. Month and a half. No, it was shorter than that. It was like a month. It was like 4 weeks.
Cool. So how's quarantine going? Any exciting shows you guys are catching up on?
I saw this new episode of Tiger King, the like post-show episode. So that was fun.
Is it like teasing more? Like another?
Hmm?
Is it like teasing another season?
No, it's just Joel McHale interviewed a bunch of the people from the show.
Oh.
It was just like, oh, what'd you think? And, you know.
I've heard the sheriff's department has reopened the case with Carol.
Into
See if anyone
Carol?
has any new information. Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, I don't know. We need a detective on the show, because like me sitting on my couch at home, I'm like, she did something, but I don't actually know anything.
Carol.
And obviously it's probably super biased, because that's how a lot of these documentaries are. It was interesting after I finished Tiger King to like go online and just like read other stuff and just kind of learn about ways in which the story was spun, or at least just like hear other points of view on like how things happen. So you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Like,
Yeah, who knows? It's just a crazy story.
I watched the Castlevania cartoon from Netflix.
was it good?
It's pretty crass, so I watched it edited, but I didn't hate it. It's not good.
Do you play the video games?
No, I never played any of the games.
Neither did I.
Well, I mean, a
That's
little bit
fine.
on the Super Nintendo, but like,
I don't think I've ever played one. Besides them showing up in Smash Brothers, that's
yeah.
about the extent of my... And I know Dracula? Is that like the main villain of Castlevania? Am I right in that?
Vlad Dracula, I think so.
Pretty exciting. We started up 30 Rock. We've never seen...
I've never seen that, and I love Tina Fey, so I feel like I should watch it.
Man, it's hilarious.
Is
I don't
it
know
funny?
why I haven't watched it this whole time.
Well, there's a couple characters in it that just... Like, I've seen like bits and pieces of it, and there's like a couple characters in it that just like kind of annoy me.
I will say Tracy Morgan has his moments, but for the most part I find him kind of annoying in this show. But the rest, yeah, Tina Fey, I've never really been a huge fan of her, like from Saturday Night Live and stuff where I've seen her, but in this, it's hilarious. It's not that there's anything wrong with like The Office, but these were same time frames, and I'm just like, why does The Office overshadow this so much? Like, it's really funny.
I should give it a whirl.
I just can't. I don't know why, but Alec Baldwin's face just makes me want to puke. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's taken too many roles in his life that I've seen him in where I don't know. I can't get into his characters anymore.
Yeah, I've always thought, because that was part of the reason I just didn't care to watch it, just knowing like, random things you hear in like the news that he's been involved with and stuff, just like that tainted it for me. But I was like, whatever, let's just watch it because my sister raves about it, and I was like, whatever, we're quarantined, we got nothing going on, so we fired it up, and I really like Alec. He's pretty funny in this. I mean, there's other funnier people, but it's a good dynamic, good show.
What streaming service are you watching it on?
Amazon.
Amazon, okay.
Prime, yeah. I think all the seasons are on there. We're in season 4. I don't know how many there are.
Oh, wow.
Cool. But funny.
Good deal.
All right. Should we get down to business?
Indeed.
Let's do it.
All right. So, a little while ago, me and the gang here started chatting about music and about a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What makes a band a certain genre, and what is good music, or what are good bands. I think Max kind of, I think you just suggested a particular band that some of us had heard of, others didn't, and we listened, and we realized that you shouldn't be our friend anymore. It's kind of where we landed. So, but like I said, it started a conversation of what are different genres within like punk rock and rock, because that's kind of what we all grew up on. So thought we could first jump into some of these different, we'd talk about specific bands and things, but talk about how we would break down rock music or punk rock music that we've grown up with since late 90s, early 2000s. Sound good?
Yeah.
Can do that.
Fantastic.
Although I didn't really, I don't have any. We had this conversation when it first came. Like, I don't really have any classifications. It's all punk rock to me.
Yeah.
Except for whatever you want to call screaming. Once you venture into screaming, I will acknowledge that as something different. But I will concede.
No, I think it's
to the more trained ear, there are more genres than I guess I'm educated on. Everything I listened to growing up all sounded semi-similar. So I was like, these are all punk rock.
Oh,
to me.
Max,
But
you are such a sweet kid.
No, I don't think. I mean, yes, I think you'll find differences in the sound between what we'll call genres. But for the most part, I think it's more about the attitude and culture and lyrics and things like that revolve around the music itself. But one time, I had someone explain to me, I thought there's 3 levels to like ska punk or and he explained it like strumming a guitar, like and that was like kind of reggae, and then like he just
how did it?
Just kidding. Shut up. And it was perfect how he made the sound effect, but it sounded just like the guitar and reggae, and then he sped it up, and that went to like ska punk, but there's something in between. Anyway, I'm missing it. So I think there will be differences in the speeds and things, for these different genres. But anyway.
Yeah, I think like if you looked at it like from a musician's perspective and like the technicalities of the tempo and the rhythm and the beat, that you could probably narrow or I guess genre label a lot of them fairly differently. But to the casual listeners, like we were, back then labels were kind of important because you're in high school or you're young and labeling is important to younger people. And so as I get older, I've kind of become more like Max, where I'm like, it doesn't really matter. It's all very similar, and labeling them all these different subgenres of genres is kind of futile. But
it's a time waste.
Yeah.
But
they all have girlfriend problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I like that as a premise from both Max and Colby, because it doesn't matter. It is just a fun thing to throw around. So I was saying where punk rock, I think punk rock itself started everything off. For again, this is a very narrow scope, because we've been friends for 20 years. And we've listened to roughly the same music. Each of us have listened to the same music for that time. So I'm sure it'll be viewed as a very narrow scoped look at music, but whatever. So anyway, just to start to break it down, I think it looks most like a tree diagram of sorts, and at the trunk, at the bottom, again, as we see it, I see it, is like punk rock. Starting with your Rancid, your NoFX, and who else? Like Vandals, Bad Religion. Those would be kind of, in my eyes, like that core punk, right? Because even before this, yes, there was like Sex Pistols and the Ramones, Clash. Like I think that's still punk, but then as far as modern punk, those are the type of bands you start to see. But then, for us, I think pop punk became a big fad, as well as like emo music. Pop punk, as I see it, is like where regular punk talked about politics and cultural topics, like bigger issues, larger than life issues. Pop punk and emo start to talk about personal problems in their lyrics, and so the main difference between pop punk and emo punk, if you want to call it that, is I guess a tempo. I think pop punk is a lot faster and happier for the most part. Even if they are talking about just girlfriend problems, still it's usually more upbeat. And then emo is getting to more acoustic and slower, sad, depressing music. I think with what we saw, I think that's kind of where it started to punk started to develop for us and evolve from there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think those, for me, like one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was all those earlier bands like the Vandals and NoFX and Bad Religion. A lot of them, which I didn't get into those as much. I got into NoFX a bit, but not really the other ones. I never loved Bad Religion. I tried to like Bad Religion, but I never really got into them. But then there's ones like No Use for a Name, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, some like straight old school punk rock, and they all had like the same drum beat, right? At various tempos, but they all had just the super fast drum beat. And to me, that was like one of the definitions of punk. And then later with more of the pop punk stuff and New Found Glory and the Starting Line, and then the emo, the Get Up Kids and stuff kind of evolved that to be a little more complex, I guess. And then I think it got a little, but like you said, the lyrics became more internal and personal, and mostly like I broke up with my girlfriend songs. So
yeah. I think that's a good way of. It does go back to how the music's played, for sure. I think that's a big factor. I would say once punk started to become a little bit more mainstream, then you get into what I would just call as like normal rock, which would be like your Good Charlottes, Offspring.
Offspring's fine. And just
Three Doors Down.
Maybe Good Charlotte. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I ever gave Good Charlotte a chance. I was just always too cool for Good Charlotte. I'm like,
Well, I mean, what Colby mentioned about labels and stuff being important in high school, Good Charlotte was, I would say, the definition of mainstream punk, right? Where it's like a commercial type band that's supposed to fit into the punk silo, right? And they dressed punk. They wore eyeliner, makeup, and ripped jean jackets and stuff. And I think that was what, at large, the music industry, expected people, or what people thought of punk.
They were like the ultimate sellout punk band. They only made music that would get on the radio, and they were kind of like the watered down punk rock, and that the punk rock kind of became eventually anyway, because it became more and more popular over time. And you got to take it with a grain of salt, because we don't know everything about the music industry or even this genre of music. This is kind of just our experience. But my experience was, that you start out in like the NoFX days and whatnot, and it wasn't the popular type of music. And then as it got to the end of those days and into the early, more pop punk stuff, that it became more universal and everyone was into it, and it kind of changed, and there were a lot more sellout, really poppy radio songs involved in it.
Yeah.
Which is why I stopped listening to New Found Glory for a while, because they kind of, when was it, Sticks and Stones was their third or fourth album?
Yeah.
And I remember being at the Warped Tour and saw New Found Glory come on, and I was like, I wasn't like up and in the crowd for that one because it was freaking hot, so I was just drinking my Yoo-hoo on the grass, and and I remember seeing this girl in an NSYNC t-shirt like cheering super hard for New Found Glory, and I was like, what is going on?
Wait a second.
Yeah, and so
this is Warped Tour.
Yeah,
she doesn't belong here.
Yeah, and so I kind of meandered
to
some of the smaller stages, and picked up some Midtown and All American Rejects and stuff that were a little less known or mainstream then.
Yeah.
Because that was part of it. That was part of the culture, right? The fewer people that know about it, or the newer it is,
yes,
the cooler it is.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, that was such a big part of the culture, is like whether or not the band was underground or not.
Yeah.
And just like, and then there was like some people that just took it to like such an extreme, where like they would just listen to like the most underground of underground bands that I think were actually quite crappy, but
yeah, there's a line, because the ones
cool.
who are good will eventually become popular because they're good, and the ones who don't ever become popular is usually just because they're not good.
Right. There's a reason nobody's listening to this band, I think.
Exactly.
But I think that is a good scale. There's like underground on one end, and then sellout. Those labeled sellout at the other end. But it was a different time at the same time, right? Because I remember I carried around in my wallet like a little tiny like Post-it note that had like band names on it of like people that I knew and I liked, and then people that like people told me about, like, to look into. And so if I'd ever go to a music store, a record store, I would whip that out and see who I could find. And because we didn't have the internet really,
right?
There was no real good way of finding new music besides like Van's Warped Tour would put out samplers, right? And or there was a variety of those little like sampler type of CDs that would come out here and there where you could listen to the bands you really like, and that's why you kind of bought the CD plus the bands that you'd never heard of and you got exposed to. So it was just weird because you didn't have every single song at your fingertips like you do now. So you had to, and it's not like you could just pick up a CD at the store and listen to it. You had to buy it. And so I think once you made that commitment, then you did have to convince yourself and your friends that this is good music. I paid $13 for this. It's definitely good.
Yep. And then if you bought something really crappy, you'd like hide it and be like, I've never heard of them. That's weird.
Well, like some albums were like, and I love Yellow Card, but actually looking back on it, it wasn't a terrible album. But I remember being really disappointed with Lights and Sounds, which was their follow-up to Ocean Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. That was just like a funny thing because like that was before you really bought individual songs. Yeah. You were just stuck with the whole album, and you just go through the whole thing from beginning to end, trying to pick out what were your favorite songs. And yeah, I definitely remember having buyer's remorse several times in high school because $13 was a good chunk of money for a teenage kid. And
so it's like Is the internet age the death of the deep tracks? Like, do you guys go into the deep tracks on albums anymore? Or do you only just like hit up the like handful on an album that you like and skip through the rest?
Depends on like the band. Like, so Jimmy Eat World recently released a new album, and the first thing I did was just listen to the whole thing from beginning to end. Like Blink-182, same thing. I listened to the whole thing from beginning to end. So it just depends. If it's like a band that I care about, and if it's like something where like I know that a new album is coming out, then yeah, like I'm still gonna listen to the whole album from beginning to end. But for other music where I don't really care that much about the artist or whatever, then yeah, I'm just listening to hits.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I mean, if it's someone I know, yeah, I'll definitely go, either buy their album or just add it to my Google Music library or whatever. But if it's something I just hear on the radio, came out a while ago now, that East Side song, catchy little song from the radio, yeah, I'll just get that one song. I don't really even look at the artist. Yeah. I'll just look for the song and then put that in my library.
Yeah, I find that even when I go back and listen to like bands that I used to like listen to all the time and love, I just go with like the handful of songs that I like. I don't go into the deeper tracks, whereas back in the days of, a 6 CD changer being like super cool technology, you'd listen to a full album all the way through, because otherwise right. You got to change the disc out, and that's annoying. So
yeah, it's funny how lazy we are now, because like I'm the same way. I don't even like buying Blu-rays anymore, because that's like way too much work to pull a Blu-ray out and put it into the player. It has to be all digital now.
It really is.
I can't be bothered for such things. But same with music. Yeah, like I remember that. Like I remember having like my 5-disc changer in my room, and yeah, that's kind of how it worked.
Colby and I were in a very successful band ourselves. We made a ton of records, and you can look them up. I mean, we're out there, but that's how we kind of made music, and how we came across music was just kind of on our own, experimenting on our own, discovering things for ourselves. But now, I don't know if it's that I just don't hear about garage bands and kids in the neighborhood or wherever making their own music, or if the world has just evolved to where it's easier to make it electronically and you could just make it on your own. But what do you guys think? Do you think that kids are still out there making rock music, and there are these new up-and-coming bands that because I know I've kind of stuck with the bands I've always listened to, and I don't really go search for new music very often. So is there still that scene out there, but we're just not familiar with it? Or, is it changing where the genre of rock is kind of dwindling down? What do you think?
I definitely think it's dwindling down. Like I mean, there's definitely still kids out there making bands and playing music and all that, but I don't think, like, I was never in a band, but like it was not uncommon at all when I was in high school to see like multiple bands, like battle of the bands. Like it was just like a very common thing. Like I remember, like, I had a friend in high school that actually, like, he had like a pretty solid band that a lot of people in the high school really liked. But yeah, like I feel like I never hear about like my nieces or nephews that are teenagers like talking about bands in their high schools. And like I think it shows like in today's music. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna make a fool of myself, but like, who are like the new like popular rock bands that people listen to? Like, I can't really name any like a true rock band that isn't like incredibly poppy, and I am struggling to think of any off of the top of my head.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that far-fetched. I mean, because you turn on the mainstream radio station, it used to be like your pop rock, where you would hear All American Rejects and the Offspring or whoever, those more mainstream bands. You would hear them on the radio,
right,
alongside Britney Spears and Taylor Swift and whoever else, right? But now I mean, aside from like Post Malone, but he's, kind of like a rapper that sometimes plays acoustic guitar.
I call him rock, yeah, but I don't know what I'd call him, but
Yeah, I just don't see, you don't seem to hear rock music on those popular radio stations anymore.
Yeah, I think it's filtered out.
Yeah, I would say like maybe like there's like a couple bands that are still popular and famous from. I'm like thinking of like Weezer. Like if they put out like a new hit song, like that will probably show up on the radio, or like Blink-182, like the biggest of big bands. But like no one really knew. And then outside of like those big bands, like yeah, I can't really. Although to be totally honest, I don't listen to the radio. Yeah, I just stream music on.
Yeah.
Well, because again, I'm still listening to the same stuff I was listening to when I was in high school.
Still break out your CDs and pop them in, huh?
Yeah.
No, I mean it's just it definitely is. It's a different world, just like it is for our parents, right? And listening to records and cassette tapes. I mean, I guess we had kit tapes, but not so much. So
yeah, they had mostly died, I think.
Yeah,
and I still remember them like being in the store, but then it wasn't as cool anymore once like CDs were available.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, rock is dying.
I know it is sad. It is sad to think. I wonder. I don't know. Maybe I'm being like a grouchy old man over here, but is it just because people like don't have like the attention span anymore? Because like I feel like everything now is like so poppy and catchy. Like would people like enjoy like a guitar solo or something? Not which, if I'm being totally honest, like punk rock didn't always like do the best job of that. Like that was kind of like, and maybe like punk rock was like the avenue that brought us to where we are today. But anyways, I just wonder if that's part of it.
I think that's a good point, because like in the internet age where you can just scroll through songs super quick from tons of different artists, like you don't really put effort into it anymore, so everything has to catch your attention like right away. If you're not into the song in the first 10 seconds, you're going to skip it, right? And so I think that has a lot to do with kind of the selection of music that people listen to. We're an instant gratification society. Music.
I feel like I'm guilty of that though, like what you just described there. Like I was like, yeah, I guess like if it's not an artist or like a band or whatever that I care about, like I'll give them probably, like you said, Colby, like 10 seconds to impress me, and if not, then I'm moving on to the next thing.
Which I agree, I do the same thing, but then I think about some of my favorite bands were acquired tastes, like Brand New and Coheed and Cambria, and the first time I listened to them, I didn't love it, but I'd spent money on the album, so like I'm going to listen to it, and I'd listen all the way through, and now they're two of my most favorite bands of all time, and so I think there's something to be said for that. And like with a Coheed song, where especially their older songs, where it would go through several different musical themes, and not get like upbeat until like the very end, I think you lose out on some of that when you go that route. But it's easy, and so I do that too, especially when I listen to newer music.
Has Coheed? So I'm not. I have no feelings about Coheed. Like there's definitely a few songs that I like. I don't really, but I never really seek them out, so I don't actually know. But has Coheed gotten more poppy as time has gone on, or what would you guys say? Because I know you both like them.
I wouldn't say more poppy. I would say more formulaic, which means that their upbeat and more poppy riffs are repeated more often in their songs, but they do still have pretty good variety, I feel like.
I remember I went to one of their concerts with Jordan. I think we went to the same one. What an interesting crowd at those concerts.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Coheed for sure, but they're even from album to album, they have much different feels in the music. Some I think can be really poppy like albums, and others are I don't know. Others are a little bit more deep into the music, into the instruments, and I don't know. I think a lot of bands. Well, you certainly see a lot of bands evolve over time. Coheed almost reinvents themselves a lot of the times, which is good and bad, because I think that some of their recent album I wasn't huge into, but sometimes they take risks, and you got to do that. I think if you want to stay relevant, you have to And if you want to stay together, right? And that's another big part. A lot of the bands we've used to listen to, most of them are, not making music anymore because they had creative differences or whatever. They just couldn't keep making music, whether because they couldn't make money off of it or they couldn't see eye to eye on how to make that music. So they mature and things. And I was listening to a Atreyu song today, and it was all about them with their kids and it's called Superhero. like how they're superheroes to their kids and stuff. And it sounded nothing like some of their original stuff, but it was still good. But anyway,
yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna just slide in a good review for Coheed's latest album, Unheavenly Creatures, because I think it's awesome, and it was the one before that, Color Before the Sun, that I didn't really get into all that much because I thought it was really formulaic and not quite as good. But I do agree, and I think that's kind of a struggle because you have to evolve, but then people evolve in different directions, and band members want to take it in different directions, and the bands that stay together, either they are exactly the same throughout all time, essentially, like New Found Glory, or they do evolve their music pretty heavily, like Brand New or Coheed.
I just saw a movie this week in which I'm ashamed to admit this. I had never heard of it, never seen it before, but I think it's an all-time classic. I think I'm the only person on the face of it. But that I saw That Thing You Do, good old Tom Hanks classic. But the whole premise of that movie is, which it was interesting because this has always been something that bothered me. But it's and when I watched the movie, I was I guess I can kind of see how things can just fracture and blow up all of a sudden. One person wants to do one thing and another wants to do another thing. I mean, it is what it is, but obviously us as the fans are disappointed. If I think about I love good old classic Blink-182. They obviously Mark and Tom had their split, and now we have current Blink-182 and Angels and Airwaves, and I wouldn't like either of those near as much as the good old classic stuff. So it's they both. I think there was more Tom than anything else, but it's just disappointing. I mean, they want to make the music that they want to make, and more power to them, I guess.
Want to search for aliens?
Although on that note, I have heard Tom say confidently that the original lineup will get back together at some point. I haven't heard Mark and Travis say it, but I have heard Tom say that.
Well, I've heard. Well, because they came back, they got back together. And I think it was really because Travis almost died in that plane crash.
Yeah, I remember.
And so they were all at the hospital together, and it's dude, let's just what are we doing? Let's make music together again. So they made music together again. But then I think same old Tom came back after they finished that album and just doing his own crazy things. And Jordan said, searching for aliens. I mean, I think that's what he's super passionate about. And who am I to?
He is.
To credit, that is what he eats, sleeps, and breathes, and now Angels and Airwaves is integrated into that whole mission of his of funding. I don't know how it works actually. I don't know if revenues from the band are paying for his to the Stars Academy that he founded. I don't know exactly. I would think that's how he's getting the money to, unless a bunch of people are donating money to that organization. But I mean, that's all he really cares about, which. I mean,
it's fun stuff, but you can't get them back together because then you'd kick out Matt Skiba,
Well,
but Matt belongs in Alkaline Trio anyway.
Yeah.
Well, he's still doing both, though.
Yeah, but yeah.
The thing about Matt, though, is I think what made old Blink-182 work so well is because Mark and Tom had nice contrast between their voices, and I don't feel you get that as much with Mark and Matt. They're more similar than they are different. I mean, they still do. I still have enjoyed these two albums that they made with Matt, but just not as much.
Yeah, I didn't even know they made two albums with Matt.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up with Blink. Well, any other thoughts on the evolution of music?
Yeah, one other thought. Sorry, before we move on. We were talking about, are people still making music? And I mentioned this before in one of our conversations, and I found who to credit with the idea. But the fact that when we were kids, people would pick up a guitar and crank the distortion up and the volume all the way to as high as it'll go, and start, riffing a fast power chord sequence to make a punk rock song, or an emo song. And today it's much easier, cheaper, and popular for them to make kind of the new wave, like hip hop stuff, where you rap sometimes and you sing sometimes, and it's really heavily auto-tuned, so you don't have to be super talented and you can still sound decent. And that most there's a lot more music like that coming out in the vein of Post Malone and Lil Lotus and people like that. And it was the Punk Rock MBA YouTube channel kind of turned me on to that. The guy's really knowledgeable and has some good insights about that sort of stuff. I've watched a couple of his videos, and he brought that idea up that he sees a lot of those sort of artists popping up where and singing about kind of the same concepts of, being a teenager is hard, I broke up with my girlfriend type stuff, where you used to see that more in the punk rock emo genre. So if you have a chance, check out some of his videos, the Punk Rock MBA.
I think I will. Actually, that's because like I'm always like hungry, because like since like there's not enough like new music like coming out, like I find myself, it sounds like silly, but it's like, what happened to like my favorite music? Like it's just like kind of dead now. So
yeah, and a lot of
maybe he can enlighten me.
Yeah, I don't keep up with newer bands anymore, but the few that I have discovered that I've liked, a lot of them I found through his videos where he talks about, all these different bands in a video, and I'll be like, oh, I haven't heard of those 2 or 3. I should look them up and see what they're like, and then I'll listen to a couple songs and maybe add them into my playlists and stuff. So it's good stuff.
So just to round things out here, what was the first album that you bought? And who was it, of course? Max, go for it.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm pretty sure it was Three Doors Down. That was my first album.
Kryptonite.
Superman song. And I'm pretty sure I listened to it over and over on repeat. So that was the first one, but if I can divert our attention away from that. Like the first album, like...
No, that was your answer.
Kryptonite was a good song.
It was.
But the first album,
but you wouldn't have a band like that today come out. I don't know. It's just weird that rock is not in the mainstream anymore.
The most recent band that I've heard of or known of in that vein was Nickelback, and I don't think I've ever heard an artist mocked more than Nickelback.
No, there are. And
I do like Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool rant about Nickelback. If you guys haven't seen it, it's pretty funny. He's like,
poor guys.
He just goes off. He's like, how dare they get such a terrible name? And he lists all the awards that they've won and anyway, how many albums they've sold and all that. Puts together a pretty good case. Anyway, go ahead, Max. What were you gonna say?
But like the first album that I remember like owning that like I enjoyed like the entire thing, and it was like my treasured album was Bleed America by Jimmy World. Like that was like that was literally one of my very, very first albums that I owned. But I'm pretty sure Three Doors Down was first, unfortunately.
Well, Jimmy is a classic, that's for sure. Colby, first album.
I don't remember which was first. I remember like my first 4 or 5, but the first one I owned, which I had to like beg my mom to buy me, that I can remember, I think this was the first one, was the first Eve 6 self-titled album with the Fly on. Yeah, with the Fly on it. Yeah. It had Inside Out on it, which was like a
great song,
a rock radio hit in middle school for me. Yeah, and yeah, I mean that was where like kind of my taste in music kind of solidified. I remember being at the store and being like, "Mom, I want this CD, this album," and she's like, "It has a fly on it," and I was like, "Yeah, so it's good music," and she tried to convince me to buy like, I don't know, some boy band CD. She's like, look, nice young men on the cover of this one. I'm like, no, let's not do that.
That was a good album. I mean, definitely had some good hits on it, that's for sure.
Yeah, it had some.
I thought I read, were they in high school when they recorded that album? Am I making that up? Like, I thought they were super young when they made that.
I think one of them. Album. I don't think all of them were, but I think one of them was. If I can remember their names, John Siebold, the guitarist.
They're That band is really good. Eve Six, like, well, I mean, they had that one, and then was it Horoscope?
Horoscope
Was their second one?
Horoscope was,
which is a great.
Yeah, I love Horoscope. It's an incredible album.
Yeah. And then they had Inside Your Head, and that was like the one that just like killed them for a few years. I don't know. I don't think it was very popular.
Yeah.
But then you didn't see them for like many years. What's that, Jordan?
They just recently toured with someone. Like what was that?
Well, they came out with a new album like in 2012 or something like that, which it had like some decent songs on it.
They're touring right now.
Really?
Not right now. They're not with coronavirus.
Well, not right now, but they've got dates. Wow.
I gotta say the lead singer.
Horoscope 20th. Sorry.
Oh, Horoscope 20th.
What's that?
That makes sense.
It's the 20th anniversary of Horoscope.
That's why.
Tour. Oh, I would love to go to that show.
Yeah, it'd be good. Their lead singer is Max. His name is Max, I think.
What a cool guy.
Yeah, he's got a great voice.
The red.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. I'm sad to see them stop making music.
Well, they had pretty creative lyrics too. Like that was like another thing. Like they had some like interesting.
Yeah, he was a good lyricist.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Jordan, what's yours?
Good stuff. Blink-182, Enema of the State. That was a good one for Blink.
Yeah.
I think that was probably their. I don't know. I mean, yes, they had their follow-up album wasn't that grand, but I mean, it was big. It was mainstream. It was all over MTV and stuff. But I feel like Enema of the State really put them on the map for sure.
Oh, it did. Everyone had that album in school, or like at least hid it from their parents. If you were in my household, I still remember like being on like a road trip, and my older brother was like listening to his Discman in the back of the car, and my dad's, being the strict person, is, hey, why don't you pull the CD out of your Discman? Let's listen to it on the car stereo. And it was Enema of the State, and I think there was like all the small things. I'm pretty sure like there was like one or two songs. I think that he's like, I only listened to these two songs on the album.
Let me see the CD booklet too.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think for him, like, I don't think he had that.
Yeah, I got a burned copy of that one to avoid the CD art being around.
Yeah.
That is like something that like kind of went away too. Is like now, like no one like burns. That was like such a huge thing when we were in high school. Like everyone was like burning albums and mixes and things like that.
What? You gotta support the artist, all right? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I remember like I bought like a ton of CDs because I thought my CD wallet looked cool like that. You'd have like all the CDs with like the with like the cover art and everything like that, and like you just like looked cool as like people would flip through. But if you go through someone's like CD wallet and it's all just like Sharpied blank disc, you're like, man, it's just not as cool. But no, I know. Well,
I would burn CDs, and then I would like Sharpie pictures on the CD front myself. I had some cool ones, real cool ones.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. What was your favorite concert and why? Colby,
I think
you start.
I think you need to go first on this one, Jordan. We'll go in reverse order.
All right.
There you go.
Let's see. I'll start. Probably my favorite. Probably it was Thrice. I think it's 2005. I think it was their Vivace album tour, and I don't remember the opening bands or anything, but I just remember Thrice. They just put on a nice, energetic concert. I do remember. What was it? Anyway, they just did fun stuff with the other bands. Like the other bands would come out and they brought their floor toms out, and like there's one point where everyone's banging on the drums and stuff. It was just really energetic, and Dustin was crowd surfing, and he touched my hand. No, he didn't. But it was just a really, really exciting concert, and it's really cemented my love for Thrice. Like, classic, probably top band in my book, but we can get to that. But yeah,
okay. Good one. It's so hard to pick. Like, I've been to some concerts where, like, it's hard because I'm like festival concerts where you have lots of really good bands that would normally, be the only headliner on a tour or whatever, playing together, and that's kind of hard to beat, where you get so much goodness in one. But I think it's a tie for me between the Coheed concert that I went to with you, Jordan, and Joe, Max's brother, and that was a great one. A little bit of a damper on it because we went to the signing, and I guess you just don't talk during those things. It's impolite. So I was like, "How you guys doing?" And they're like, "Good," and gave me a
keep it moving.
Yeah.
So this confirms my observation that it's an interesting crowd that rolls with Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah,
you two are included in that.
I feel like Coheed and Cambria fans are the same kids that were in like drama club and in band.
Because they're so theatrical. I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, because it's all are people. It seems like everyone that loves Coheed and Cambria is also like really into like the stories behind like the music. Am I correct in that, or no?
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to be a huge Coheed fan without knowing a bit of the comic and book backstories to a lot of their albums.
Yeah,
and I think that grips you even more. Like it's going back to that. I paid $13 for this CD, so I'm gonna love it. And it's that type of mentality where, well, I'm fully invested in like all these stories and comics and stuff. So like that kind of pulls you that much more into the albums and music. I mean, I think it's still great music, but without having that background of what they're singing about, you're not gonna get it as much.
Yeah, and I agree. I love that about Coheed. I haven't read all the comics and whatever, or the stories. I read like the comics that went with the first album, and I read the book they put out for Black Rainbow. But yeah, I just think just knowing there's a story behind it, there's like another layer of symbolism, and I don't know, it's kind of cool. It pulls me in more, which I kind of like. But I do know fans. I do know people who didn't even know there were stories that went with it. This was a while ago, but I think there are people who just like the music and get into music and don't really get into the stories or don't even know about the stories.
Yeah, like anybody can turn on Welcome Home and like be a huge fan.
Yeah,
with having no knowledge of any backstory.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, the other concert that it's tied with is the acoustic concert with Chris Rowe, where he played through Blue Skies, Broken Hearts, and So Long Astoria. That was pretty dope.
Yep. Nice.
Yep.
And I was surprised you didn't say Billy Idol.
That would have been in third place, because what was it? Unwritten Law, Jimmy Eat World, Taking Back Sunday, and then Billy freaking Idol. That was a great show.
It was funny. He wasn't even like the headliner.
No, Sum 41 headlined.
I think we left during Sum 41.
We did,
but like,
because after Billy Idol, you're like, nothing will top that. So we just
they put on a really fun set.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And that was even the only time I've seen them. I saw them another time. I saw him at Warped Tour. It was weird. He was on Warped Tour one year.
That's cool. It's the oldest guy I know with super shredded abs.
Yeah. Max.
So yeah, mine. I actually haven't been to like a ton of shows, but my favorite one, it was probably like 5 or 7 years ago. Jimmy World, my favorite band. It was the 10th anniversary of their Futures album. Which actually, when Futures came out, like I enjoyed it, but not that much. But it was like when I was in college that I really grew to love that album. So obviously I was super excited when they were doing a 10th anniversary of it. But they played through the entire album from beginning to end, and then came back and did like all of their hits. It was a super long show, and then it was here in Phoenix. I think they always give a really good show out here in Phoenix because that's their home turf. But I also was like sitting next to like the guys running like the sound and the audio for the show, and they had the what is it called? The order of songs that they're going through.
The set list.
Yeah, they had the set list there, so I could actually see which songs were coming up, and I was just like super excited the entire time. Like, oh yes, we're gonna get this one. We're gonna get this one. So yeah, it was a fun show. I'm glad I went. It was just like a cool atmosphere too, with all the fans there. So
I like Jimmy. I don't feel like they're super energetic on stage, but they sound really good live.
He sounds really good live. And actually, you know what? That's funny that you say that, because I feel like they are more energetic on stage than I would expect them to be, because like their music isn't necessarily like the most energetic stuff, and they don't really look like a band that you'd expect that, because they're kind of like just like clean cut dudes, and you don't expect them. So I remember like when they were playing, you know, they were like dancing around and jumping. I'm like, huh, interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like
I remember I saw them in Tucson at the KFMA Festival, and I didn't feel like they moved around. I mean, they were sandwiched between like Taking Back Sunday and Unwritten Law, and I felt like they were kind of stoic. Then I saw them again at the UCCU Center here in Utah, and again, not super energetic, but they like have the really cool lights that kind of make up for it. Plus, they sound really good, so it's still a really good show.
Yeah, they're great. I like them, and he's been doing some stuff. I mean, because I am diehard, but on like Fridays now, he'll like go to like different venues here in Phoenix, and then just like live stream like an acoustic version of like show of some of their songs. Which actually, that's been like one nice thing that's come out of like this whole pandemic, is like the amount of just like artists and bands like putting out different versions of their songs and doing like little live shows on YouTube. It's been fun to watch those.
Yeah, for sure. All right. 2 more. Maybe we'll rapid fire. Sure. Favorite. This is to Colby first. Most memorable music memorable memories. Like when you're listening to a particular music album, whatever, it's tied to a certain event. What would you? Do you have any events like that?
I don't have any super specific ones. I remember a plane ride in high school where I just sat, and it may have been my first time listening straight through In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3 from Coheed. And I remember just sitting on an airplane, just closing my eyes and laying my head back with my headphones on and just cranking that one out and listening the whole way through. And that was pretty epic. So like whenever I fly with kids now, which is awful. And I'm always like, I wish I could just put music on and sit back and listen. So I think that was it. My other ones are all kind of mixed together. Mostly it's just driving around in the car with you morons and listening to whatever new music we had and cranking it up loud. So nothing super specific past that, but just lots of good nostalgic memories of listening to that good old music while driving in cars.
Yep. Maximus?
I don't know. This is a weird question. Not a weird question, but yeah, like I know what you're getting at, and it's like hard to like
can you put a song on and it's like bam, like your brain just automatically goes back to.
I guess what I would say is people are going to think, well, there'll only be 2 people that ever listen to this anyway, so it doesn't matter. But going back to Jimmy World, on Bleed American, there's a song called The Cautioners, and I remember like listening to the song a lot right before my girlfriend in college broke up with me, and I kind of feel like I knew she was going to break up with me, and I definitely didn't want her to break up with me. And that song, and I was just like listening to it over and over and over and over, and it just kind of like resonated with how I was feeling at the time. And so, yeah, now I don't listen to that song anymore. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that would be an example. I mean, again, it is what it is. Like if that song were ever come up, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna remember like being in college, like doing my homework and listening to that song over and over and over, going, I'm gonna get broken up with any day now.
That's funny. That's a good one. That is good. I think that I've got a couple. I don't know why, but they just stick with me. Like one. I'll say a couple real quick. One, I was traveling a lot for work, so I was on planes a lot, and I would just read books. And when I would read, I would put on Britney Spears. I'd shuffle Britney Spears. So now, whenever I listen to Britney Spears, which is frequent now, I instantly remember reading books on airplanes. First time snowboarding, I was listening to Juliana Theory, like the whole day, a couple days I was doing it. So anytime, and I don't listen to Juliana Theory very often now, but whenever they do come on, it's like psh, right back up on the mountain there. And then last, the other one that just came to me was, who is it? I think it's B-52s. Is that no?
Love Shack.
The do red wine. No, it's not B-52s. It's who does red wine?
Oh.
Anyway,
UB40.
There was a time. Yeah, that's it. That's
UB40.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. There was a really weird time in college where I was not focused on school, and I was in the dorms at the time, and I was like, me and my friends were like bored, and we were tired of playing video games, which is weird, and we were like, we should make blankets, guys. And so we got some sewing machines and made some blankets, and the whole time we just listened to Red Wine on repeat and the Red Sky by Thrice and another song, an Elvis song. I forget that song. But we just shuffled those 3 songs for hours while we're making these blankets.
and the great part about that story is that you guys were at BYU, and so we're completely sober the entire time.
Yeah.
And
there was no red wine.
That still happened.
There's no red wine.
What else do you do for fun?
Yeah.
I knit. Okay, cool. Lastly, what are your favorite bands? Just rattle them off. What are some, for all of our listeners out there, who should they go look up so they can understand who we are musically? Max, you first.
Jimmy Eat World. Rufio. Love Rufio. In fact, when you're asking about memories, it made me think when I was dating my wife, we went on a road trip to go see our families. And I was like, all right, you've got to she had never really listened to Rufio before. And I'm pretty sure I made her listen to all 4 albums. And so the fact that she could not only survive a road trip with me, but also listen to all 4 albums of Rufio was a good stress test on a relationship. So Rufio, Starting Line, only the first album, Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, Eve 6, I Do Love Fall Out Boy, Blink-182, Sum 41. Now I do like Alkaline Trio. Lately I've been listening to Paramore, not ashamed to admit that.
I like Paramore.
Weezer. Yeah, I'm sure there's more, but that's probably a pretty good sample.
Good collection.
Yeah. My my top 3 favorites all time would be Coheed and Cambria, Brand New, and the Ataris. So
Ataris
ones
is another
to check
one.
out. But the Get Up Kids are up there. Something to Write Home About, a phenomenal album. So there's lots of other good ones. Too many to go through.
You're on mute, Jordan.
Top in my list would be Thrice for sure. Love Thrice. Can't get enough. And Alkaline Trio, Brand New, Jimmy Eat World, Coheed, Funeral for a Friend. Definitely like that. Like them. Well, I haven't listened to most of the recent stuff, but they're good. I don't know. Yeah, there's plenty. Avenged Sevenfold. Like them. Who else? I don't know. I think any of these bands, you could pick up most of their albums and just listen to it at any time, right? Listen to any of the albums anytime and enjoy it because they're all the best bands. All right, guys. Well, any other thoughts?
Yes.
Punk rock is the best.
I have been inspired to find new music because as I think about it, I mean, and I do. I listen to a lot of what my wife listens to now and, some pop stuff and keep up with that a little bit. But I always think about my dad who he stopped really caring about music at Jethro Tull and the Doobie Brothers. And like, I don't know, I like staying, I feel like I want to stay up with it more. And, you know, music is like the spice of life, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I've been inspired through these conversations to kind of look into some more bands and spend some time getting to know some new music. And part of that is getting older too, and I think getting a little bored with everything that I have. But yeah, don't get stuck. Find new stuff and look into new genres. I've become a Taylor Swift fan out of nowhere. Ever since 1989 came out, I'm a Swiftie, so there's always new stuff, and if you broaden your horizons, you'll definitely find stuff you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed to be you, even if you are a Swiftie.
Yeah.
No, I when I said I still listen to Britney Spears, I do, because I think there's plenty of good music beyond this genre of rock and punk rock for sure. Yeah, I do love me some electronic and drums and
the Chainsmokers.
Dubstep.
Which actually,
sure,
you asked what the
on.
best show we'd ever been to. The worst show I've ever been to, hands down. Like, you cannot fathom how bad it was the Chainsmokers. Like, it was so bad. I mean, just like nails on a chalkboard. It was just so. Mostly because those two guys are just ginormous tools. I mean, just like not, you know, just like when you're listening, when you go to a concert, you know, it is like nice for them to like interact with the crowd a little bit. And you want them to be like a cool person. Like anything that came out of those guys' mouths, you're just like, oh my gosh, please just shut up. Like it's just painful.
I like some of their songs a lot. It gets redundant.
So do I. And I still listen to their music, but it's also kind of tainted now because I'm like, by me playing this song, I'm sure they're getting like another penny or something, and I can't support them. But I do like some of their stuff.
That's funny. Yeah. I think there's plenty of bad concerts out there too. But no, I think it's always good to look for new stuff for sure. Because I mean, no matter what it is, what type of music. You can always admire like the talent it takes to make most of it, especially Britney Spears. She's the best at talent. She can dance, she can sing, she can act. I mean, she's got it triple all. Threat.
I forgot she had a movie. That movie was so bad.
Crossroads.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I like Britney. In fact, I'm disappointed I never went and saw her when she was in Vegas.
I know.
What a missed opportunity.
She'll be back. Femme Fatale, probably her best album in my...
I don't know her album super well. We need to end this because no one made it this far anyways. But who cannot remember when that first Britney album came out? I mean, that thing was like a massive. Like, I just remember like everyone in school was talking. It's like similar to Enema of the State. There's like a handful of albums I just remember like just like causing like shockwaves throughout school, and everyone would be talking about it and listening to it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's how it goes.
And that was one of them. And all of us boys were in love with her.
Yeah.
I still remember my friend in like school had like if you opened up the disc, whatever you call it, like the little booklet that comes with like the CD, like there's like a picture of her, and I remember he had that like taped up on his wall, like with all like the creases and the folds in it. But,
wow.
Good times.
Good times.
Yep. She's the best. All right. Well, I think that's enough music talk. Maybe we'll have another one of these later on, but we'll see. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, because we're posting there all the time. Subscribe, rate, and review, and thanks very much, everybody. Good night.